Hello there everyone, it is Toby here from TIJ Music and welcome to a new video. Today it is time for another album review and we are going back to the self-titled debut of one of my favourite rock bands of them all. And we are talking about Kiss, the self-titled debut, indeed called Kiss. Now, as well as being Kiss's debut, this is one of the first albums released on Neil Bogart's Casablanca Records. Now, Kiss were formed... It's fought in 1973. Now, the two members, first on the left and third one here, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, were both in a band called Wiki Lester before Kiss, and they hired externally for Ace Frehley, the guitarist, and Peter Criss, the drummer. And much of the material for this album was written before they went into the studio. I think actually all of the material was. A lot of it, though, was written for the pre-Kiss band, Wiki Lester, which, as I said, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons were a part of. So, on March the 13th, 1973, which was 11 months before this album came out, the band recorded a 5-track demo with producer Eddie Kramer that they'd go on to work with in the future. Those tracks included Juice, Strutter, Cold Gin, Watching You, and Black Diamond. Now, 4 of those 5 tracks made it on this album, and the other track, Watching You, made it onto the Hotter Than Hell album later on in 74. So, former TV director Bill Aucoin, I don't know how to pronounce that, Aucoin? Not sure. But he agreed to become the band's manager late on in 1973. And his offer to pick up the band's manager was that he'd get him a record deal in the next 2 weeks. And sure enough, Kiss were one of the first artists signed for the new Casablanca Records, as I've said, formed by Neil Bogart, obviously in homage to the 1942 film Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart. Neil Bogart had experience, though, in the record trade. He was the former Buddha Records executive, which ran sort of late 60s, early 70s. And to celebrate the release of the album, Casablanca Records actually held a party, and they invited some of the press and members of their distributor, which was Warner Brothers Records. Kiss played, their wonderful show, their loud show with all the spitting blood, etc. And basically, Warner Brothers Records said if the band didn't remove their makeup, that that Casablanca would split from Warner Brothers Records. And because Bill Aucoin said no and rejected that, then Warner Brothers released Casablanca from their contract shortly after the release of the Kiss album. But certainly, the makeup it really formed an identity to Kiss. There was a lot different to other bands. It was that their downfall in some ways, because, funnily enough, the photographer for this album shoot genuinely thought they were clowns. Wanted to put balloons in the background, and the black band, very quickly told him to do one. But the photographer reckons that this is all false and something of imagination. But this album cover is intended to be very reminiscent of With the Beatles, which is the Beatles' second album, the 4 of them on the front cover. Now, 3 of the members here painted their own makeup. Again, I'll show... Actually, no, the cover's in the corner here. 3 of them did their own makeup. For those of you who know the band, guess which one didn't? Yeah, Peter Criss. And it looks absolutely nothing like his makeup going forward. Very much an oddball there. And Ace Frehley, the guitarist on the right-hand side of the album cover, he wants to impress the members of the band, so he dyed his hair with silver hairspray. Not sure if that one worked or not, but it came out easy enough with some shampoo in the end. But this was originally a 9-track album. I'll read out all the tracks on the album now. So the opening track, we've got Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, and Let Me Know on side 1. And then on side 2, we've got Deuce, Love Theme from Kiss, which is an instrumental, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond. But none of these tracks here were successful singles, so Neil Bogart really wanted to have a successful single after the album came out. So this was about April, May time. The album hadn't sold brilliantly, the singles had dived, so he wanted a single. And the band went into the studio at Bogart's request to perform a cover of Bobby Rydell's Kissing Time from the 50s. He thought it'd be a successful single. It wasn't. It went to number 83. And we went on the second cut of the album in July 1974, which is very much against the band's wishes. It sounds completely different to anything else on the album. But it's actually a decent track. It's not too bad. But I'm obviously not going to review that here today, because it's not on the original album. And around here, I do like to review the original albums. And as I said, the album didn't sell particularly well, but the release of that Kissing Time single did help to increased the album's sales slightly. Sold 75,000 copies initially without a hit single. And then by 1977, surprise, surprise, when the band went really big time and got a lot of good albums, a really good run of albums all the way from this album to Love Gun in 1977. It was certified gold in the US, having shipped 500,000 copies. And Gene Simmons has actually said this is his favourite Kiss album. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's have a look at all of the 9 tracks. All of these written by written by all the band in effect, but a lot of them written by either Stanley or Simmons. There's one track here written by Ace Frehley, and another track with all 4 members having songwriting credits, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So the opening track is Strutter. It's a great opener, great up-tempo track. The lyrics were written here by Paul Stanley, and the music's based on a song that Gene Simmons wrote years before called Stanley the Parrot. Incredible coincidence, but that is just a coincidence. Nothing to do with Paul Stanley himself. It's a track that's inspired by good-looking women in New York City. It's a great track. It's not one of my personal favourites. Could be a 10 out of 10, but because of my personal preference, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. And for those of you who are maybe watching for the first time, in these reviews I give each track a rating out of 10, and then at the end of the video we discuss what the verdict is, an average of course of all the ratings. So track number 2 then, Nothing to Lose. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Another great Kiss staple. Again, probably better here on the Alive album. The first 3 albums that Kiss brought out, this one, Hotter Than Hell and Dressed to Kill, didn't do very well. So the record company, as a last dash, released a live album, and, as the story goes, we see what happens after that, and the band go really big. And this is a really good track on the Alive album. It's fair to say this album has quite a raw sound, and the production, you could say, is a little bit dumbed down, but I quite like it. I quite like that raw sound. And again, Nothing to Lose, a really good track. It's written by Gene Simmons here, and without going too into the nitty-gritty details, it's discussing coercing his girlfriend into taking the back door. Take that out your head, and it's a great rocker. It's an 8 out of 10, and really good vocals by Peter Criss here, of course, who does the chorus. Track number 3, Firehouse. This is one of Kiss's best songs. This has to be a 10 out of 10. The fans tend to agree. It's one of the most played songs live by Kiss. It's been played over 1,400 times live as of 2014, which is an absolutely bonkers stat. Great live, as I've said. Simmons, fire breathing. It was actually influenced by the British group The Move, which Roy Wood was a part of before he joined. Now, I've got to get this right, because I always get Roy Wood and Roy Harper mixed up. I don't know why. Roy Wood, I'm sure Roy Wood is Wizard, right? You know, big beard, I wish it could be Christmas every day. It was actually influenced by The Move's track called Fire Brigade, and there's some similarities in there. I mean, this track's better, but you know, everything has an influence, I guess. But a Kiss and an overall rock and roll classic is Firehouse, 10 out of 10. Track number 4 then, again, another 10 out of 10. This is excellent, this is Cold Gin. This is the first Kiss track that was written by Ace Frehley. However, he felt a bit too uncomfortable in his vocal duties to sing it, so Gene Simmons sings it. Ironically, though, Gene Simmons is a teetotaler. Probably one of the only things he hasn't done in his life, but I'll digress. Of course, Ace Frehley sang later on in the band's career, in 1977 on the Love Gun album with Shock Me. And again, he wrote Parasite for the Hotter Than Hell album, didn't sing on that one. But Shock Me shows his vocals aren't that bad at all. Great guitar riff, great lyrics, and it is fair to say here that Kiss's lyrics are often underappreciated. I discussed this in my review a few months ago, actually, of Motorhead's Bomber. There's actually some really good lyrics in some songs. There are some tracks that you just think, I don't know what the lyrics are about, and probably the band don't know what the lyrics are about, but this one is really good. It's actually often misinterpreted, I find, as a song that's about someone using alcohol to cope as a coping mechanism, and even to potentially provide a sex drive. But this song is actually, and this has been confirmed by the band, it's very much about loneliness, poverty, and alcoholism as well, of course. There is that obvious theme to it, but much like Firehouse, it is an excellent Kiss staple. So track number 5, we close out side 1 with probably the weakest track on the album, but that's not much of a critique. Is Let Me Know, 7 out of 10. Originally, it started life as a song called Sunday Driver, and it is the track here that does scream debut to me. I don't want to say the word, but I can't think of another one in my vocabulary. It's a teeny weeny bit amateurish, but it's a good track. It is. It's a 7 out of 10. And by saying it's the weakest on the album, it's not that much of a critique, given what it's up against here. There's some brilliant tracks, as we said, on side 1. And this was another one written in the Wicked Lester days. It was actually the song that Paul Stanley sung when he was first introduced to Gene Simmons. It's a good track, but it's just not quite at the level of the others. And I wrote in my notes when I was listening along to this morning and writing my notes that I'm going to be incredibly harsh here with a 6. And I'd written that sentence out, and then the guitar riff at the end of the track played, and I thought, I can't give this a 6. Sod it. I'll give it a 7, so that's exactly the rating that I've given this track. And a bit of a quote from Paul here. Let Me Know started off as a song called Sunday Driver, and it was the first song I ever played for Gene when we first met. And here we go. For Gene, it was a revelation because I don't think he realised that there were other people walking the streets as common people who could write songs besides him, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. That's Gene Simmons for you. So, we open up side 2 then with track number 6, Deuce. You wanted the best and you got the best. The hottest band in the world, Kiss! Never doing that again. But that opening riff is so recognisable from the start of that Kiss Alive album. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic track. This one written by Gene Simmons. And as I said earlier, Gene Simmons has got absolutely no idea what the lyrics are about. And to be honest, I don't really either. There are some tracks, and I'm going to contradict myself here, there are some tracks that you just don't need to worry what the lyrics are about. Some tracks, the likes of Cold Gin, some really good lyrics, but Deuce, it's a great rocker, and, it's another Kiss staple. Incredibly catchy, great bass line, guitar riff, just bloody awesome. 10 out of 10, it goes without saying, a brilliant Kiss staple. Then we have track 7 out of 9, which, funnily enough, is a 7. Now, I did say that Let Me Know is the weakest track on this album, and this probably rivals it. It's called Love Theme from Kiss. Bit of an oddball, this, and I think most classic albums, a lot of classic albums have this, just a strange oddball in there that doesn't quite make sense and fit with the rest of the album. Now, this is an instrumental track, that's an evolution of a track called Acrobat that they played during their 1973 club shows, and it's the only Kiss song, period, that features songwriting credits for Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, the 4 members of the original band. And when you sit back and really listen to it, actually, there's a real synchronicity about it. It really shows how well the band play together. It's got a real good blend, real good rocking track, real good rocking sound, sorry. But you have to ask the question, does it really fit the album? Not too sure, but I'll give it a 7. Instrumentals, okay, does it fit on a Kiss album? It's questionable, but as an instrumental goes, it's pretty good. It's not terrible, it's not awesome, but it's good, and that's all it is. But a good 7 out of 10. We then get to the penultimate track on the album called 100,000 Years. Oh, that riff from Gene at the start of the track. Killer opening riff. Absolutely awesome. Again, great instrumentation here by Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley. That bass and guitar riff is brilliant. I don't think this one's quite as good as the 10s, but again, another great Kiss staple. Even better live, this one, with the extended drum solo. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. This one is, according to Paul Stanley at least, kind of a song about a space traveller and time travelling in general, and basically the amount of time that somebody spends going to another planet and all galaxies and returning 100,000 years later. And it's actually got a really tough solo at the end if you listen to it, and a comment made on a website which is very important, well, not necessarily very important, but interesting to note. Bruce Kulick, who of course joined the band in the early 80s, very technically gifted, and he found it really tricky to play this solo as well. And Bruce Kulick actually commented, I've always been very impressed by this one because I feel it's where Ace made the most of his limited vocabulary. It's a syncopated part, I haven't got my dictionary on me, that's tough to play on stage. It is. It does feel like a tough track, but it's a great rocker nonetheless. And then we go to the final track of the album, another 10 out of 10 here. Brilliant track. The finale, Black Diamond. I think if I didn't give this one a 10, I'd be crucified down in the comments. Yeah, it's okay, I have. Another excellent composition, this one written by Paul Stanley. Now, Peter Criss sings in the first 2 verses, and it's excellent. I couldn't really imagine, it's the same, I guess, for a lot of albums, a lot of tracks that you listen to time and time again. I couldn't imagine anybody else singing this one. I know Eddie Kramer said to Peter Criss that he loved his screaming voice and that he had to sing this one. Now, bear in mind, of course, this album wasn't wasn't produced by Eddie Kramer, but it was part of that demo that they did. I'm just checking it definitely was, because I don't want to sound like an idiot when I get this wrong. But no, it was part of that demo. So, yeah, Eddie Kramer said at the time that he wanted Peter Criss to sing it because that screaming vocal really fit. And I agree. I really do agree with that. Paul Stanley says the song's about New York City, seeing hookers on the street, that kind of thing. And obviously a lot of it, I think at least, is about prostitution. That is fairly obvious. Great tempo though. Absolutely brilliant closing to the track with the drums, the guitar, the real slow end to the track. It's really unique in that way. I can't think of a track that ends like that, but sort of 2 minutes before the end, you've got the boom, boom, boom. It's great. It really is. It's a great close to the album. It's got real tension there, and I think that's exactly what the band were trying to create. So that's my thoughts on all the 9 tracks here. And it brings out an average rating at the end, which is very strong, no surprise. An 8.88 out of 10. All the 8s. Very deserving rating, I think this is, for a great debut record. It's a really underrated debut album, I think, by many. And again, just because it's Kiss, there seems to be a bit of a prejudice towards Kiss. Because of the makeup, I think that's one of the reasons. I don't know why there is a prejudice towards Kiss, but ho-hum, you know, I enjoy Kiss, plenty of other people do. If you don't want to, then that's your choice. But this is definitely one of the best debut albums of all time. It's started a really good run of excellent records all the way from Hit This to Love Gun. And this has certainly got elements of a raw sound, but funnily enough, it's not actually as raw as Hotter Than Hell. Question is here, though, is this the best Kiss album? Tricky. It's better than Love Gun, clearly, according to me, because I've done an album review of that one and given that an 8 out of 10. Obviously, your obvious choice is Destroyer, but there isn't really much between any of the 6 big albums. Of course, I'm talking about this one, Hotter Than Hell, Dress to Kill, Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun. If you were to press me for an answer right now, it's tricky. It's really tricky. I might actually go for an oddball choice. I really like Rock and Roll Over. Just the question of whether it would beat this rating. It's so tricky. I think any given day, any of those 6 albums could be a really good rating, which shows how consistent those first 6 albums are. I was listening to a good podcast with Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility and Martin Popov. And Martin Popov's often credited with saying that Queen and Judas Priest had the best runs of albums in the 70s, and that anything else is kind of down to opinion. I understand what he's saying, but I have to say Kiss really do rival that. You know, an excellent first 6 albums. You can't argue against them, and really brilliant stuff. So the question is now, what do you think? What do you think down in the comments? This is a great record. If you never listened to Kiss, do you not like this album? What do you think is the best Kiss album? I'd love to hear it all down in the comments. But that's it for me today. An excellent album. Really enjoyed going through this morning, and hopefully I'll be doing a few more Kiss reviews in the future. I'd quite like to do a review of Sonic Boom because I quite enjoyed that when it came out, and I'd love to go back to it. I want to get the CD though before I do a review, so that might take a few months, even years perhaps. Who knows? Anyway, I've been Toby from TIJ Music. Please leave a like down below if you enjoyed that. It really helps the video to be seen by more people. Also, leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and remember to subscribe for regular album reviews, top 10s. I do a range of artists around here. My known genre, if you like, is hard rock, but I do like stuff at the other end of the spectrum. That's why you might see stuff like Neil Diamond, etc. on the channel. But again, this is my channel, my music tastes, and Kiss are one of my favourite groups, so hopefully I've done them justice in today's video. Thank you for your company. I've really enjoyed this one. I hope you have too. I've been Toby from TIJ Music, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.